boys and girls, baseball fans, and history buffs. Welcome to this special presentation of the Big Game James Show, presented by ThinkSlinger.org.
Back-to-back jacks!
And now, presenting your most handsome host, Big Game James.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest broadcast of the Big Game James Show. But before we get on, I just wanted to remind you that you can tune in to us at iTunes, on the Stitcher app, and over at the TuneIn app. That is iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn, along with most popular streaming services. We are now in syndication, as announced on the last show, and we're... Yes, as you guessed, we are still excited about that. But let's get on with today's show. This was a very interesting topic. I've been looking into this one for quite a while, and I wanted to wait until I had all of my information straight before I did a broadcast on this one. You can also read about this broadcast almost in verbatim over at ThinkSlinger.org in a article I just wrote this morning titled "The Legend of Chief Tokohama." That is The Legend of Chief Tokohama, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's get right to it. On March the 11th, 1901, the Cincinnati Enquirer reported the signing of an extraordinary player named Chief Tokohama to the Baltimore Orioles by manager John McGraw. Tokohama was later revealed to be Charlie Grant, a player from the Negro Leagues. McGraw was attempting to draw upon the bounteous resources of African-American talent in the face of baseball's unspoken gentleman's rule, which prevented black players from playing in the major leagues at the time. Now, this is almost 5 decades before Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier for good. 1901, that is. Nevertheless, McGraw, who managed the Baltimore Orioles from 1899 to 1902, and New York's Giants from 1902 to 32, had great respect for the abilities of black ball players and was at the forefront of the effort to integrate professional baseball. Reporters often spotted McGraw in the stands, and this is all legend, but no evidence has actually surfaced to suggest otherwise. Reporters reported they often spotted McGraw in the stands at Negro League games, carefully watching and taking notes and later copying the strategies used by these teams, such as base stealing, sacrifice bunting, techniques that we've since termed scientific baseball, or more colloquially, small ball. Legend has long held that McGraw had pitcher and Negro National League founder Rube Foster teach his Giant star, Christy Mathewson, how to throw his devastating fadeaway pitch. McGraw also held exhibition games between his team and Negro League teams, providing them with excellent paydays and good publicity, actually great publicity. In October of 1917, Negro Leaguer Smokey Joe Williams pitched against the National League champion Giants, striking out 20 batters before losing 1-0 on an error committed in the 10th inning. Had records been kept in those exhibitions, the mark of 20 strikeouts, his mark, would have stood for 69 full seasons. Now that's just amazing, folks. McGraw was not the only major league player who favored integration, however. Neither is he the only one who took up the cause. Hall of Famers Bob Feller, Dizzy Dean, Ted Williams, Paul Wainer and Lloyd Wainer, and Jimmy Fox were among the players who barnstormed with all-star Negro League teams in the offseason, long before being allowed to play with them in the regular season. In fact, many of the players I just named never actually got to play in a regular season game alongside their African-American brothers. In 1901, however, keeping blacks and whites segregated ruled baseball's hegemony. And I found an old clipping from the Washington Post from March of 1901, which reported a Chicago paper says that despite the loss of Charlie Grant, and this is the player we're talking about, Chief Tokohama, Despite the loss of Charlie Grant, the Indian player who goes to McGraw's Baltimore team, the Columbia Giants, and in parentheses it says colored, are to have a powerful team this season. McGraw will have to exhibit Tokohama in all his war paint before the Chicago fans will believe that he has signed a genuine red man. Now, I am simply reading this verbatim. These are not my words. These are words of the Washington Post at the time, which kind of reveals a little bit of the racist overtones of the words people, chose to use back then. Whether they were meant to be hateful or not, I highly doubt they were meant to be hateful, but this just goes to show you the underlying racism that just sort of existed in the minds of a lot of these sports writers back then, and perhaps could shed some light on why McGraw would have had to disguise his soon-to-be, or who should have been his soon-to-be star player. Continuing, after Grant signed with the Orioles under the pseudonym Chief Tokohama, White Sox owner Charles Comiskey uncovered his real identity. That is, Charles Comiskey, in which Comiskey Park was named after, the Chicago White Sox Park, etc. He's the man who uncovered his real identity and led the charge to ban him from the league officially. Grant, as a result, ended up spending the 1901 season playing second base for the Columbia Giants, which was a Negro League team based in Chicago, before he signed with the Philadelphia Giants, another Negro League team, the following season in 1902. Chief Tokohama, or Charlie Grant, ended up having a pretty good baseball career after that. John McGraw, on the other hand, went on to win 8 National League pennants while managing the New York Giants, as well as 3 World Series titles. He ended up, he passed away in 1934, 12 long years before Jackie Robinson took the field for the Brooklyn Dodgers on April 15th, 1947, finally killing Major League Baseball's archaic gentleman's rule. Thank goodness for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I take away from this is there were earlier efforts in baseball prior to this gentleman's agreement, or rather during this gentleman's agreement, to integrate baseball. Granted, it was covertly with players like the pseudo-named Chief Tokohama. William White, was a player that I've discussed him in podcasts of the past. Who played for the Providence Grays for a time in the late 19th century, I believe 1883 or so, and some other ball players managed to actually play baseball, though they very well might have been the only people on the field that knew that they were black ball players. But nevertheless, these are all people that we should be celebrating, and we should know who they are. So just remember the name Charlie Grant, and if you ever hear of the legend of Chief Tokohama or it being referred to, you'll know that they're talking about Charlie Grant, one of the first Negro League ball players who almost got in the league covertly, thanks to the assistance of John McGraw and other managers and players who were trying actively to integrate the game at that time. Unfortunately, they didn't have the power to do so, and the hegemony always prevails. But fortunately, as I last mentioned, Jackie Robinson did break the color barrier finally on April 15th, 1947. Another day we should always remember in the annals of baseball's history. Anyhow, that's going to do it for now, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning into this quick podcast, and reminding you, tune us in at iTunes, Stitcher, and on the TuneIn app. Until next time, this is James F. Thomas IV reporting for ThinkSlinger.org and the Big Game James Show. Have a wonderful day, and let's play ball.